Hello everyone. Good morning. I hope you are well today. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm just going to pull up all the streams to make sure that I can see any comments as they come in. And if you are watching on the replay, do give me a hashtag replay in the comments so that I can come and say hello to you at a later date. Any questions that you have, whether you are watching live or on the replay, please do ask me in the comments. I am more than happy to answer any questions that anybody has. For those of you that are new to my daily live show, 11 a.m. UK's Weekdays, this is the UK business and coronavirus update. This is me speaking about all things around the economy, the banks, pending recessions, all those kinds of things, support available, and what is affecting UK business at the moment, and things that you might want to be thinking about. So there we go. I've got all the streams available now, and I can see all the comments. So do give me a hello in the comments if you are joining. I would love to say hello to you. It is always great if I can see who is joining and I can say hello. It makes me feel like I'm not speaking into the abyss quite as much. So I do appreciate it. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Annette Ferguson. I'm CEO of Annette & Co, UK-based accounting firm. I am a chartered accountant and certified Profit First professional, and I help business owners take home more money from their business for them and their families to enjoy. Of course, that might be slightly challenging at the moment, and that is why I wanted to start doing these daily lives in order to try and support you as much as possible, both during this time and of course beyond. So thank you so much for tuning in. I do appreciate it. Thank you, Lee. I am very well, thank you. Thank you for asking. I hope you are well as well. I do appreciate you asking. So thank you for that. Also, if you do already know, hello, Abby. Thank you for hopping on. If you do already know that you get value from what I share in these live streams, I would love if you want to share this out to your community, your friends, your followers, your fans, whichever platform you're on and whichever naming convention is used there. I would very, very much appreciate that. So thank you for that. Now I'm just trying to get up my comments on in the Uncover Wealth community. There we go. They were being a bit of a pain, but they seem to have come through now, or starting to come through now, which is good. For those of you that don't know, the Uncover Wealth community is my private community on Facebook, and I invite you to join there as well. That is the place where when things are announced, when anything important comes out, that is where I announce it. So, you are more than welcome to join there. You just need to search Uncover Wealth Community in the search bar in Facebook, and you will find that in there as well. Hello, Anna. Hello. Is that Yahya? I don't know if I pronounced that right. Hello, Sapphire. Hello, Sue. Thank you so much for tuning in. Who else do we have? Hello, Joshua. Hello, Joe. Hello, Ron. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. So, first on the agenda today are the business bounce back loans. Of course, they were announced on Monday, the business bounce back loans, with the aim of providing faster loan funding for small businesses, for micro businesses. And, they were launched as a result pretty much of the Coronavirus Business Interruption Loan Scheme, the CBILS loan scheme, being very slow to pay out. The business bounce back loans, of course, 100% guaranteed by the government. And we have heard that many billions of pounds have already been paid out under this scheme. However, there have been a few glitches. So a number of people with a number of lenders are reporting they have heard nothing at all. They have submitted their application on Monday and Tuesday and not heard a peep since. HSBC seems to be a major problem with this. They seem to be having some very big issues, HSBC, unfortunately. And since they are the only bank that are allowing lending for non-customers, they also have a huge swathe of of borrowing requests from non-customers to be dealing with as well. So they're having some pretty big problems. We also heard yesterday that Starling Bank are now able to offer the business bounce back loans as well. So for many, that's going to be very important too. Many businesses, of course, opting nowadays to go with what may be termed the more modern banks rather than the traditional high street banks. So now that Starling is offering the business bounce back loans, that's going to be very helpful for a number of people. Mel Stride, the chairman of the Treasury Committee, has written to Barclays demanding an explanation for the problems that they seem to be having in distributing these bounce back loans. People have also, with Barclays, experienced problems with their app in applying for it. So the ability to apply for the loan for some people not being shown. And as I say, Mel Stride, the chairman of the Treasury, has asked for an explanation on that. NatWest also seem to be experiencing some issues with the bounce back loans as well. So something to bear in mind. Of course, if your bank does not currently offer a bounce back loan, as I said, you have HSBC as one of the options. However, they do have some issues, and there are more banks being added to bounce back loans, and you are able to potentially wait a couple of weeks. Your bank may, of course, end up being approved, and it might be a lot easier for you. Bounce back loans are not disappearing. I think a lot of people are scared that if they don't apply this week, they're going to disappear completely. Bounce back loans are actually going to be available until November. So there is some time on this. If your bank is currently not offering it and your business is okay in terms of cash funds, then you do have some time to apply for it. You don't need to panic and apply this week. So that's something to remember as well. And I'm just going to take a drink of my tea. Sue is saying that she applied with Santander and received it the next day. Yeah, absolutely. And that is the story for a huge number of people. So a huge number of people are applying and getting it very, very quickly. Santander was the first to start paying out, actually, and Santander even paid out a few of their loans on Monday, a very small number, but they did pay out some on Monday. So they've been very good at getting these funds out. Good morning, Susan. Hello, Olive. Thank you so much for tuning in. No, Peter, I'm not Australian. I am Scottish. Thank you so much for tuning in, though, Peter. Abby, I also love tea. Robin, thank you for joining me today. Thank you, Maddie. Thank you, Ash. Thank you. Let's see if we've got any questions. If you have any questions or queries, please do ask them in the comments. I am more than happy to answer those as we go along. So please do ask in the comments if you have any questions that you want to raise around this topic. I'm being asked, when is lockdown ending? I have no idea on that, unfortunately. I cannot answer for the government, and I cannot answer any health-related questions. I do not know when lockdown is ending. I did read an article in the Times this morning, though, that indicated that it may be until we may be locked down until June. So if you're interested in reading that, you can head over to the Times website and read that article about lockdown. But I personally cannot answer any questions on when lockdown will end. I am not privy to that information. I'm not in the government. So UK PLCs are slashing dividends by £24 billion. That is for the top 100 UK PLCs. It says that investors are braced for years of lower payouts from some of the most reliable shares. This is going to impact, institutional investors, potentially pension funds. Those kinds of things are going to be impacted by these issues. BT has suspended dividends, saving itself £3.3 billion over the next 2 years in an effort to conserve cash. Now, this is something that, I've been speaking about with a lot of clients, is businesses doing what they can at the moment to conserve cash. What that doesn't mean is you stop paying people you owe money to. That is not how you conserve cash. Dividends are, of course, not a mandatory payment. They are up to the business as to whether they pay a dividend or not. And therefore, many companies are deciding that they are better to save onto their cash and preserve that than they are to pay out a dividend to shareholders, which is not a legal requirement. But understanding where you might have money leaks in your business and plugging them is very, very important. Now, if you've never heard me speak about money leaks before, you can find out about that by heading over either to my YouTube channel and finding that money leaks video that I have in there. So if you are on any of the platforms where I have a URL, you'll be able to do that by kind of clicking through and getting to my YouTube channel that way. Or if you want to head to my podcast, which is on all good podcast players, Uncover Wealth Radio, episode 6, I believe it is, that I talk about money leaks. So again, you can find that there as well. I'm seeing some questions coming through. I will be covering those as well. I just want to finish up on the kind of dividend piece, which is Shell, who have been the top paying for dividends historically very much, are not paying dividends for the first time since World War II. This again gives us an indication of businesses holding on to cash and potentially what we are heading towards as well in terms of recessions, which I'm going to speak on a little bit later. So let's see what questions we have in here. Maddie saying, I like your glasses. I appreciate that, Maddie. Thank you very much. It's very kind of you. Beth is saying, if I am furloughed from one business and take on some freelance work for another business, am I still okay to claim 80% of my salary under the furlough arrangements? I'm assuming the freelance work is part of a self-employed freelance work, Beth. So if you're furloughed from one company that you work for and you have self-employed income and you are able to generate that through freelance work, yes, you can do that and still claim furlough. The only thing that we have to be careful of is some certain anti-avoidance stuff. So if you've just set up as a freelancer because you've wanted to claim furlough and your business is shut down, then you need to be careful there, because you may be in breach of separation rules. So it's you need to be careful about that, whether you are complying with artificial separation laws that exist, which basically say that if you are running a limited company, you can't basically also have a freelance or sole trader business doing the same thing. That is artificial separation for VAT purposes, and you can't do that. I mean, you could if they both were VAT registered, you potentially could do that. But there's some rules around that for artificial separation, so you need to be careful of that. But if the limited company is doing something very different to the freelance work that you can do, then yes, you can absolutely continue to do the freelance work and be furloughed in a job, in the same way that anyone who was employed for, say, a corporate and was put into furlough and then also had a side freelance career, they could continue doing that. So in the same way, you would be able to, as long as you are not splitting up the business in order to go through this time, in which case artificial separation rules are going to exist around that. So I hope that helps, Beth. If you have any more questions on that, do let me know and I will attempt to answer those. Thank you for the follows. By the way, I can see a few people following me. Thank you, Abby. Thank you, Maddie. I do appreciate that very much. Maddie saying, how many years have I been doing TikTok? About 6 months, maybe, maybe slightly less, something like that. So let's have a look. Robin is saying, is it a good time to start investing in shares? Potentially, Robin, potentially. You know, the stock market is very low at the moment. It depends on what your goals are around that, whether they are short-term or long-term goals. And it depends, you know, on your appetite for risk. So that has to be something that you decide yourself in terms of what your risk appetite is, how much time you're willing to devote to it, whether you're going to be monitoring the charts or whether you're going to be putting money in and then leaving it for a longer period of time. But, you know, potentially stocks are at a low level. We may, however, see them drop lower. So again, it depends on what your appetite for risk is and what that looks like. And you have to place your own judgment on that. I'm not here to advise individuals on their investment portfolios, but it's certainly something for many people to consider at this point in time. But it's not, as I say, it's not up to me to advise on each person's individual risk appetite, and each person has to decide for themselves whether that is something they are willing to do as part of an overall portfolio. Companies are warned over guidance on getting the UK back to work. There's a lot of concern over this sort of rhetoric around getting the UK back to work and what needs to be put into place. People are saying that the measures are going to be extremely costly. They're going to be incredibly difficult in practice. We know that guidance is still being worked on, but if you have a small premises, it's going to be very hard for social distancing. If you are in a workplace that operates heavy machinery that, 2 people need to operate and that kind of thing, then that's going to be very difficult to understand how that will be able to happen with social distancing in place. Even things like staff rooms. Typically, most places have very small staff rooms. How do you work breaks and stuff so that people can social distance during that, or small corridors that people need to go backwards and forwards down? All that stuff's going to be very difficult to navigate for many, many businesses. Sajid Javid, the former chancellor, is saying that banks must be forced to take on more capital to facilitate lending. He's saying he's worried about the health of banks. Note, he's also saying he's not worried about the stabilization of banks, but he is worried about their lending ability. Banks have to keep certain ratios in order for them to not fall foul of banking regulations. And if they lend more, then that gives them a real problem with their liquidity and capital ratios. And therefore, the former chancellor is saying that the banks should be forced to take on more capital to be able to basically lend more to small business and medium-sized business as well, so that they can facilitate the lending in order to facilitate economic stability and economic or less economic contraction rather than economic growth. So that is coming from the former chancellor as well. Let me just see if we've got any comments too. Let's see. Nothing as yet, I don't think so. If you have any questions, please do let me know in the comments. I am more than happy to answer those. Oh, let's see. We've got some over here maybe. Oh, no, I've seen those ones already, so we're good. Okay, do let me know if you have any comments or questions, then I will answer those. So economists are saying that this is potentially the worst recession in 300 years that we're going into now. This follows on from what I was saying yesterday about, an incredibly severe depression. Unemployment is set to rise sharply by around 10%, and then probably not recover to its current rates until sometime around about 2023, 24. So looking at a 3-4 year recession, again, this ties back to something that I was speaking about a few days ago. Typically recessions in the last 2 to 3 years. We're expecting this to be a deep and prolonged recession, so potentially longer than that time period. We are expecting it to be pretty severe, and there are talks of it being even a depression, and people and businesses need to be aware that that is the situation we are heading to. And what do you need to do in order to prepare yourself, both personally and in your business? What strategies do you need to adopt? What do you need to be thinking about in terms of your client base, your product offerings, your service offerings, your marketing, your messaging, your team, all those things? What do you need to be thinking about, and what do you need to be putting in place in terms of a strategy as we go into this recession, which is being said to be the worst in 300 years, incredibly long recession. Thank you for joining me, Leora. I do appreciate you hopping on. So the Institute of Fiscal Studies has also said there's going to be a number of obstacles to any type of recovery happening and what that might look like from a business and financial perspective. They have said that, of course, as and when lockdown lifts, uncertainty won't disappear. The public, people in general, and workers and employers are still going to be nervous. There's still going to be this uncertainty. We just don't know what's happening. There's also going to be an impact on the supply and demand for goods. So the supply in terms of if anything face-to-face is needed in the supply chain. I've already mentioned things like operating machinery could be a problem. So there's the potentially issues around that. We also know at the moment, for example, goods coming out of China are taking longer once they leave the factory floor to actually get on a plane or a boat than they typically used to. It used to be a couple of days for that, and now it's 7 days minimum. So we know that in some countries, the supply process is taking longer than it did before, and that will only continue with social distancing rules in place and things. There's also going to be an issue around things like labor supply, would-be purchasers, people just having less money to buy. And of course, the impact overall on the world's economy, along with withdrawal of government financial support. It feels like it's only just the beginning of a spiral of issues that are going to exist in the economy and in businesses as a whole as a result of all these areas. And the Institute for Fiscal Studies report is backing that up as well. Lenders have granted nearly 1.2 million in payment holidays to individuals. That is made up of around 700,000 credit cards and 470,000 personal loans. It's also waived interest on overdrafts up to £500 for 27 million customers. All of those measures basically cover the 3 month ended to June. Except we've got a big problem here because, as I mentioned a few days ago, it may have even been last week, is that yes, this time period has been challenging for many, but in reality, we have much worse financial positions to come after this. So April, May, June has been hard. July, August, September, even October, November, December, the rest of this year is going to be harder financially, both on individuals and on businesses. People are going to be made redundant. They're going to be losing their jobs. There is going to be, reduced output from businesses. There is going to be even harder financial positions to come for most people. And therefore, people have already taken advantage of the holidays and payment breaks that they're getting already, and then they're going to stop, and then they're going to be in a worse financial position. And this is really, really concerning from all areas, from the banks, from individuals, from pressure on the system, increases in claims for universal credit, all those things. There is going to be even more pressure, people defaulting on loans, people defaulting on credit cards, because they're going to be in an even worse financial position in a few months' time. So it's really concerning for all areas of the economy that this situation is kind of building and brewing. There is also 1.6 million homeowners who have taken mortgage payment holidays. That is giving them an additional £755 that they would have been paying in their mortgage in their pockets. But again, that ends in June. And again, people are going to be in a worse financial position after these 3 months than they are going to be in the next quarter, in Q3 and Q4. So there are calls to extend that for 6 months. There's calls to extend it for another 3 months. But of course, if somebody loses their job and is now redundant as a result of, a contracting economy, then, is it right that the government covers their mortgage payment? Because in any other situation, were they to be made redundant, the government wouldn't cover their mortgage payment. They would have to, they'd have to potentially sell their house or restructure their finances or do something else. So, I completely feel for people in this situation. If you are in this situation, I completely understand it. But at some point, this support is going to finish. And that, how you deal with that as a business and as a family, you need to work out. Because when we get to that point, what does life look like for you? It's really important to be thinking through that both as a family and as a business. Question, is there help for loss of profit and waste and also rent? We are running a small pub. Yeah. If you're running a small pub, you should be entitled to grants for those businesses that have premises. So you should be entitled to receive that. That will come from your local authority. So you need to speak to your local authority about that. In terms of rent, there's not. We recommend you speak to your landlord in terms of rent. There's currently discussions going on around something called a landlord rent furlough. Rent furlough is the name of it. And those discussions are around potentially meeting halfway with landlords, whereby the commercial tenant would agree to pay a certain amount of the rent, the landlord would agree to a certain amount of rent reduction, and the government would cover any amount in the middle. Those talks are underway at the moment, but nothing has been agreed on that. So I would speak to your local authority about a grant, potentially that you may be entitled to as well. If you're running a small pub, of course, you'll be able to furlough your staff and claim furlough for your staff as well. I don't know if you're doing that as a sole trade or a limited company either, so there may be some other things as well. If you go to my website, annetteandco.co.uk as well, you can see I have a link on the right-hand side there for all the support that's available for businesses during coronavirus. So you might want to check that out as well. Okay, so I think from my notes, that is all that I wanted to cover today. Let me again check out any questions. Alicia, are you in 2 lives? At the moment, I am on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Periscope, Twitter, and Facebook. So I am multi-streaming. So yes, I am, which is maybe why you can't see questions coming up in the stream that you are looking in. So let me, hi again, Abby. Hello, Maddie. Hello, Luca. Hello, Lifehacker. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let's see. I don't think I've got any more questions on that side. Hello, Sean. Thanks for coming back and joining me again today. What else have we got here? Susan is saying, I applied for a bounce back loan with RBS on Monday. A new account has been opened in my business section, but it's empty. I think it's a loan account, but it's empty. Is this usual before funds land? Typically, Susan, you would... the bank will have to open up the loan account and then deposit the funds into the loan account. So potentially, yes, it's difficult to know without knowing the bank's process on that, but that's potentially where your loan funds might end up. I can't, of course, answer that for certain. The question is, Susan, have you received notification from the bank you've been approved? Because if you've received notification and then you've been approved, then it will just be up to their system to take a few days to make that payment out. So it's worth checking your email to see if you've had that notification through as well. Have we got any other questions? Oh, Nicola is saying she wouldn't have thought of streaming to TikTok. Yeah, Nicola, my setup is that I use Restream for most of my streams, although I was on a different platform with somebody being interviewed yesterday, and I'm going to check that out. But at the moment, I use Restream for Facebook, Periscope, Twitter, YouTube, and my Facebook group, the Uncover Wealth Community. And then I am streaming to Instagram and TikTok on 2 devices, on 2 phones. So that's how that setup is working. I often get asked about my setup for this. So that is what that looks like for people. Any other questions? Anything else that anybody wants to know? I am back again on Monday at 11 a.m. as usual, again discussing UK business and coronavirus and what that might look like for you, the economy, the government, all those things. So do mark your diaries. Do tune in then as well. I would love to have you on. And as always, I will answer any questions that you may have along the way as well. Of course, we might hear on Sunday night about the about any changes to lockdown that may, of course, affect businesses too. So if it does, I will be speaking about that on Monday. But anything immediately I will be speaking about and announcing in the Uncover Wealth community. So please do hop over to Facebook if you're not already in there and join me in there. You just need to search Uncover Wealth Community in the search bar in Facebook and come and join me. I also have exclusive content in there that is not shared anywhere else. Another place you can find exclusive content from me is Uncover Wealth Radio. That is my podcast. You'll be able to find that on all good podcast players. I also have this going to there a few days after it actually happens because of editing and timing issues. As I say, I've got some individual podcast episodes in there as well that are unique to Uncover Wealth Radio. So again, do hop over to iTunes or whichever podcast player you listen on and subscribe in there as well so that you can get updates. Those podcast episodes come out daily as well. So thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate your time as always. I know it's incredibly precious, and thank you for spending some of that with me. I hope you have found this session valuable. Please do share out to your friends, your followers, your likers, your fans. Please do give me a follow if you are on a platform where you are watching and you're not already connected to me or following me. Please do. I would be most appreciative if you want to do that. And I will speak to you all again, same time, same place. Monday at 11 a.m. wherever you are watching. Thanks again for tuning in. I'll speak to you all soon. Take care, everyone.